To talk a little bit about greens. Lots of people think greens are something that you only have in the spring and fall. But let me tell you, here in Central Virginia, we can have greens every week of the year with just a little bit of help. So we're going to kind of look at it starting from now, going into the summer, and throw in just a little bit of the winter and fall. This is kind of funny because I can't actually see which slide is up. Let's see if I can get myself organized here. Okay, so next slide. Thomas Jefferson is famous here, and I always say Thomas Jefferson and his many unknown gardeners planted lettuce every day, once a week from February until September. And that is something to keep in mind when you're thinking about how to have a year-round salad garden, that not only lettuce, but other salad greens can be had there. And there's a lot of different kinds of lettuce too. When you go to the market, often there's just so much romaine and some kind of leaf, but really there's summer cause, they're bibs, they're ones for each and every season. So let's look at some more. And this is kind of our overall schedule. Actually, in this first part of the year, if you have a cold frame or some place under cover, then you start in February planting like once a week. But as you go into the hot part of the year, like in June, you think, oh, it's too late, I can't grow lettuce. But let me tell you, it's not true. What you really need to do is work on your timing. Instead of planting a whole lot at one time, which we sometimes do because you just can't help yourself. But fortunately, in a packet of lettuce, there's a lot. So plant a small amount every week during this time. Then as you get into August, you want to take and slow and have it more often. And that's because you're starting to plant for the fall. And you don't know when you're going to have good weather in the summer. You might have 3 of those weeks that you plant, but only one of them does well. And so that's why you plant a little small, like for a home garden, you might plant 6 inches. It's not a lot. And then when they're about this high, when they're like maybe, 4 to 8 leaves, then you're going to transplant them. As space becomes available in your garden, that head of cabbage that didn't make, put some lettuce in there. You can do this. And another thing that you want to do is in September, you're going to plant like every 3 days, because that's your outdoor refrigerator that you're getting ready. Let's move on. And this is what it looks like. Where we are, because there are more people, we're going to, plant more like 1 inch to 2 inches at a time. And when you come into September, you just have all these little rows like this. And as you take out those summer crops, you're going to replace it with the lettuces. And we usually plant them more like 6 inches apart and then eat half of them and let the others grow to get bigger. Okay. Jericho lettuce, I mentioned this because a lot of people are used to having romaines, and this was a romaine that was developed in the desert in Israel. So it does really well in hot weather. The only problem is it's moisture here, so you need to make sure they have enough room so that you don't get bottom rot. And this is Sierra, which is one of a whole class of lettuces that are called summer crisps or Batavians. And they have a little bit of the crispness like you would get in an iceberg lettuce, but they still have more color, nutrients, and they don't get all whitened on the inside because they're only a semi-heady lettuce. Butter Crunch is one of my favorites. I love Butter Cause, and Butter Crunch was selected with the American Horticultural Association winner one year because it was one of the most heat tolerant butter cause. So check it out. And slow gold is another one of those summer crisps. Actually, there's a lot. Crawford is an heirloom from Texas. And we like it because it does well in the heat, but never let it get more than half size in the heat because then it'll get bitter on you. And you can take bitterness out by harvesting early in the morning, then putting your lettuce in water for 20 minutes or so, and that takes out some of the summer bitterness. But if you let it get too big, it's too bitter, you can't do it. Right. Other kind of greens that we like to use is tatsoi, which you kind of think of it as an Asian cooking green, but if you look in all the salad mixes, they're little baby tatsoi leaves. So they're one of the ones that you can make a summer mesclun for yourself. Mizuna, the red mizuna, the green mizuna are good. And then some of the loose leaf Chinese cabbage also is good because it grows really fast. And the thing about having your salad mix in the summer is you're going for something a little bit bigger than the baby greens, but not much. Here's Tokyo Botana. That's what one of those loose leaf heading, non-heading greens. And we really like it both in the summer and again in the late winter because it grows fast. And something that is really common, like when I was in Jamaica, they always have callaloo or amaranth greens cooked. And actually, all over the African diaspora, it's very popular. And it's easy to grow. They get a little eaten sometimes by bugs, but even when they're bug holes, they make really good cooked greens. Soko, Yokoto, African celosia. I call it edible celosia. And it has a pretty flower like the celosia that you are used to. But if you go to the next slide, if you just keep cutting the tips, you can have these nice little tip leaves to add to your summer. I say if you have any prepper tendencies hidden, these edible leaf flowering things are great because if somebody is wanting to partake of your garden, they don't think of those as the edible things. And I wouldn't talk to you about greens without mentioning collards. We think that they're just a few collards, but if you go to heirloomcollards.org, you can see some 60 varieties that were collected by two cultural geographers in the 90s and 2000s from kind of a dying breed of home seed savers. And one of the reasons that I like to, introduce college whenever we talk about greens, they're available from your garden 10 months of the year. That's how they became such a quintessentially Southern food. And they are only one of the Brassica oleracea that were developed in the southeastern part of the United States. And you think there's just a few, but there's all these purpley ones and there's shiny ones and there's light colored ones. It's amazing. And speaking of Jamaica, when I go there, they plant collards close together in the summer and cut them often as baby leaves and make something that's more like what we think of as a kale salad here. And it's really tasty. Check it out. And this is one of those more light green White Mountain cabbage collards. And that's in the fall. But if you let it keep growing into the winter, it's a semi-heading collard. And they make collard kraut from it in South Carolina, where it's from. And from Northern Europe, there's greens that you don't have, and those are these various Savoy winter cabbages. January King is sort of known as that. It looks like this one, but has a little bit of red at the edge of the leaves too. And you know when you have to plant it to get those heads in January? August or early September. They need a long growing season for some of these most winter here, at least where we are, which is only 30 miles from here. So here too. Okay, next slide. And here's another one of those flowering jewels of Opar. It's very nice in your flower gardens, and it's short, never gets tall. So you can use it as an edge to the border. You can even put it with something like peppers or tomatoes that have an open edge for about half of their life and have the little greens. And then when the tomatoes or the peppers get bigger, they just take over. That's okay. Let's see another one. And again, like the edible celosia, when you harvest it, are the tips of the little branches before they start to flower. Isn't this tasty? Are we going the right direction? Or maybe I put that slide in 20. Yes, sweet potatoes. We love them. They're sweet, they're delicious. But did you know that the greens can be eaten? Again, we're talking tips. There's a lady who has a Korean restaurant in Charlottesville, and she had all these sweet potato vines, you know, growing around the edge of this tall planter, which also was what separated her outdoor space from the neighbor's integral yoga's space. And she said, you know, in Korea, we take the small little tips and make something that we cook a little bit like you do asparagus, and the little leaves for stir fries. So, and if you keep tipping them off like that, you'll have more tips all summer. So, and this is red Malabar spinach. There's also green Malabar spinach. I like the red just because the stems are so pretty. And again, this is something where if you keep harvesting it when the tips and the leaves are small, you can have a lot of greens. They are a little bit mucilaginous, I admit it, it's true. But if you eat them when they're small, they have less of that tendency. And if you cook them in a stir fry or something, you chop them up and just put them in just long enough to get them warm so that they have a good texture. And New Zealand spinach, I don't know why they call it spinach. It is a nice green, cooked. If you think you're going to have a salad green with this, I thought this and I tried it. I took it off the stems. I did this, that, and the other. It's got a funny texture, but if you lightly cook it, it's pretty tasty. And it will grow in the heat of the summer. And so it's kind of like, you know, winter keeper tomatoes. If you wait until January and have one, you think they're delicious. If you have one in September when you've got like a mortgage toaster coming out of the garden, you'll think, why do people grow these tomatoes? Mexican mint marigold is another thing, and it has more of that fennel type taste to it. It's in that flavor family, and if you like that, it can be really nice, and even the flowers in the salad. Salad Burnett, I told you I'd come back to some cold weather ones. This is one that you can start, you know, like in January or February, put it out and have greens early, and has a little bit of a cucumber taste. When I lived in Canada, I thought of it as an all-season herb, but here in Virginia, it's like in the spring and then it's kind of done. But you can start again if you like it and have some in the fall again. Sorrel is nice, and I think of salad Burnett and sorrel, they're both for what the English used to call the hungry days, which is in April when all of the wintered over vegetables are mostly eaten up and the summer ones are not very big. But these are things that come on strong in March and April, and you can carry yourself up with a lot of nutritious food. And you can make sorrel soup. Who's had sorrel soup? Check it out. The creamy base really goes well with that kind of acidic thing going on. Okay. And perpetual spinach, some of you have heard Pam Dolling, she's my garden writer friend. When she lived in England, they would grow all summer these green chards with the kind of small rib in the part, and then another part of the rib that you could slice up and stir fry together, and they call it perpetual spinach. Okay, next thing. That's my book. Shameless commercial moment. I said I'd just bring a little something, and then we could talk about questions that you have. I don't know if the people who are not here are able to chat in questions or not.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna fold all these seeds and sit there because I hurt my knee. What I like about co-ops, they're so homey.
How's that?
Sounds great.
All right.
Okay, what you got?
Do you dandelions? Dandelions?
I harvest dandelions for the green.
Please.
Okay, do I ever grow dandelions for the greens? I don't. I know people who do. We have enough of them growing that we harvest them to keep them from taking over the world. Yeah, but you need to eat them when they're younger, because they get kind of bitter. This girl will make pesto out of anything. That's Chloe. She's one of our younger members, and the girl will turn all kinds of crazy stuff into some really kicking pesto. Yes.
On Zoom, Liz is asking, where do you get these plants and these seeds?
Well,
Can you repeat the
actually,
question?
Liz is asking, where do you get these plants and these seeds? There are some local nurseries like Forest Green that grow a lot of plants from our seeds, and they're more of in Mosaic County. I don't know who here in Fredericksburg.
We sell them here.
And the seed, oh, yes, I saw that rack. You need to fill it up. Yeah. But there are seeds there in the rack. And of course, you can always go online to southernexposure.com. But if you get it at the co-op, you don't even have to pay shipping. Huh. Looking good. Tell them what you want so they can order it.
For the winter greens, do you do any preparation for when like snow comes?
Yes.
You gotta repeat the question, I'm so sorry.
Please repeat the question.
Okay. For the winter greens, do we do any preparation for when the snow comes? Yes, indeed, we do. And I guess the thing that I'd say is keep them covered. We cover them in 3 different ways for the winter. Mulch them, and the more hardy thing, the spinach and stuff can do that. Use spun polyester row cover, and if it's extra cold, put either plastic or a tarp over them to give them extra protection. And if you're lucky, like us, you have a high tunnel, you can put some in there too.
So, Whitney wrote in, and she asked a question about cleaning the greens. She said when she harvests lettuce, there's slugs and aphids all over them. How do you clean them thoroughly?
Okay, well, I'll tell you how my grandmother taught. The question is, when you harvest greens from the garden, often there's slugs and aphids and other little friends who we have to understand are trying to find their place in the soil food web and the web of the garden. So we just figure out how to coexist with them. And my grandmother said, salt water is your friend. So she would soak them in salt water because it makes the slugs give up on holding on to the plants. And then she would rinse them with clear water after that.
That's good.
So they say, you know, that traditionally people say you got to soak your collards twice. Works good with your lettuce too. Yes.
So Whitney has a follow-up question. Is it okay if there are some mist bugs on them when you eat them?
I think we like to eat low on the food chain. Bugs are pretty low. And most garden bugs aren't gonna hurt you. They might taste nasty, but that's a different story. I was reading about this restaurant in Copenhagen that features bug meal things. So I guess you can eat them.
Another question. You showed us so many greens and so many forms of lettuce. What's your personal favorite?
Well,
You gotta repeat the question.
okay, so there's so many greens and so many types of lettuce. What is my personal favorite? My personal favorite happens to change from time to time, but at this time of year, I like romaines like Jericho, and I like I like Sierra and other of those Batavian crisp, summer crisp type lettuces. But any kind of butter cause I like too. Don't you like those little butter crunch and Crawford and all those little baby lettuces? And they're great. If you have only a couple of people in their house, you can cut them when they're half size and serve the whole thing. Is there a person who has a question?
Question, Daryl?
Can you store the greens after,
The way that how do I store greens after?
you just put them in?
Well, almost. That's the best, if you could do that. But generally speaking, with greens, the way that we store them is we harvest them the day before and soak them and then rinse them again to get all the grit and stuff off of them. And then, put them in the, well, in our case, in the walk-in, but the refrigerator does, either in a plastic bag. Actually, they have these little cloth bags now that are for reusable refrigerator bags. And we have a lot of Tupperwares that you can put a bunch of greens in. Because what you want them to do is to get rid so they have a little bit of moisture. But then you want to dry them with one of the salad spinners, because if they have too much moisture, they get all yucky. Yeah, I was thinking of the right word, and I thought, oh, yeah, sad. Yes.
For lazy gardeners, are there any greens, that can pretty much be spread like weeds, like you plant them and they'll just grow like weeds pretty much, and keep seeding themselves and kind of take off without much?
Some of those flowering greens, like he said, for a lazy gardener, are there things that you can plant that will come back up and self-sow basically? And yes and no. You really have to do a little bit of help with timing to get, the things that you want. But like say the edible celosia and Jules of Opar, If you let them go to seed, they will come back up. And the seedlings are distinctive in color when they come up. They're kind of yellow and different looking than what your other things are. So once the first time you know what they look like, which you might notice when you plant them the first time from seed, they do fine. You can actually take lettuce and just any lettuce and sprinkle it in a bed that's well prepared with some nice compost and stuff, and that will come up. And you can let that go to seed and have more lettuce come up other years. But you kind of have to know to do a little bit of scuffle hoeing early in the season, so some of the extra early season weeds don't take over before the varieties that you want are starting to come along. Yes.
What do you recommend in terms of how to prepare collards in the most delicious way possible?
Well,
What are your favorite ideas?
how to prepare collards in the most delicious way possible. That depends on what you eat. Okay, you know, like some people say cooking collards, you know, with some kind of pork fat is a thing. Other people don't eat pork. So, and other people don't eat meat at all. And you can actually make I do think a little oil helps. So you could go with olive oil or sesame or something like that, and a little garlic. Saute those together until the onions are all caramelized or the garlic. And then that gives you some of that umami that you would have gotten from the meat to go in your meat. And you can cook them slowly and long, or you can cut them, you can take and stack them up and roll them like you would a cigar in a factory, and then cut them in real thin slices, chiffonade style. And then they only take 10 or 15 minutes to get to a nice tender consistency. Sprinkle however much salt you like, however much hot pepper you want on top. That's pretty good. But I have to say, you know, I traditionally grew up with cooking them in water that had some kind of salt meat in it. And even though I only indulge every so often, I do still indulge. Yes.
The secrets are very tiny. What's your favorite way for different evenly spread out?
Well, there are different things with, she was saying seeds that are so small, how do you spread them? Well, there are a few ways. You could mix them up with something like sand, and that works. I've had friends make their own seed tapes out of toilet paper. And you can use glue, you know, the little glue that you make out of flour for kids, so it keeps it spread. That works pretty good. A lot of times I just spread it around. They have these little round things, seeders that you can order online that have a little round thing to put some small seeds in, and then you let them go one or two at a time along the line. That works pretty well too. I find a lot of times with lettuce in particular that it helps to every, you know, foot to put a radish so you know where you made that line. Other questions? Yes.
What's your Cosmo lettuce?
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Cosmo?
Well, Cosmo is a romaine type lettuce, and I like it because it's early. I would say that's its thing. It's nice, it's early, it has good texture, and some people say a lemony flavor. I think that's a little extravagant. Lemony. This one friend tried to tell me this. I said, "You're just making it up, girlfriend."
die off in the heat.
It gets, it, pretty much any of the romaines will get that, when you have hot and wet and moist, it's gonna get that. So romaines I'm growing in the summer, I only grow half size. And get them in, and I make sure they have enough room so they're not right up against each other. Yes.
What are you planning this time of year, and what would you be planting next?
Well, we're planting the last of our spring greens in a large amount, but we're starting to put in things like cucumbers. These are hallelujah cucumbers. They might be fabulous and they might go up in a frost, a late frost. But you know, you already get like twice as many cucumbers in a pack as you're gonna get around the planting. So you can take that chance with the early ones. And if you have some left later in the season, like my friend Pam, because at Twin Oaks, they have 50 to 100 people living there at any given time. So they plant cucumbers once a month, starting in May, April inside, move ones, May, June, July, and August. And those ones at either end, maybe they'll be good and maybe they'll be dead. Yes.
Will collards do well in the grow bags?
Yes. I was actually, it's funny, I was just looking, oh, well, collards do well in grow bags, big grow bags. The ones that are kind of like a bag of soil that you're used to, they'll do well. But with grow bags, you really have to make sure that you pay attention to keeping them watered. But I was looking at a YouTube video about collards and they had a bunch in grow bags and they looked mighty fine. I'm sorry. We try to control cabbage. She asked about, do we try to control the cabbage worms? We do. One of the things is we transplant our collards and cabbages and stuff, and we either have them, if you have them over about 3 feet high, they don't get as many of them because they don't look for them up there. We used to grow them on this deck that we have above our office. We cover them with row cover. The other thing that you can use is tulle, because it's really cheap and you just make a little cover and that works there. Because once they're a good size, you can notice the cabbage worms before they've destroyed your cabbage. Other questions? Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your community, what you all do, and where you are, where you're from, and that kind of thing?
Okay, I live at Acorn Community. Oh, can I tell a little bit about our community and the farm where we live and our project? And I guess I can. I was trying to tell you about seeds, but hey, you want to know about the commune? We're in intentional income sharing community. We have about now 20 members, including our membership candidate. Chloe is our newest member.
You're in Mineral?
We're in Mineral, Virginia. We have a 72-acre certified organic farm. When we first started with southern exposure there, we grew a lot of the seeds. Now we grow a lot of the seed stock that we get other farmers to grow larger amounts as the company has grown. And we try to be good citizens and do things like we join this co-op, but we haven't been getting over here as much as we should. But there's all these other local farms that we want to support too, so try to spread the love. Gosh, what can we say? We own our farm together, and that is an unusual thing in this time, to take the risk of living and working and sharing equally. Because, you know, sometimes certain kinds of work is more valued in this culture than others. But, you know, if people didn't grow food and seeds, we wouldn't have anything to eat. So we think it's possible to try to make a lifestyle where all the work that you agree on is valued equally. And that's pretty fun. We do homeschooling, but some people who live in the community have sent their kids to the local public school and been very involved in those activities as well. We sort of like organic things, homemade. Someday we're going to have open house again, but not yet. Not yet. We used to have a big tomato tasting at our farm every year and worked with Monticello for the Heritage Harvest Festival there. And we hope that these things will be again in our life. But right now we're sort of poking our heads out a little bit into the world, but a little bit half in our shell because we're not sure what's going on. I want to say that, you know, there's so much inequality in this world. And one of the things we're trying to do is an experiment to see how a few people living and working together can be, you know, a model for more equality in a number of ways. And in Louisa County, there's like 4 or 5 communities, Twin Oaks, Living Energy Farm, where their focus is on living fossil fuel free and having direct solar and all that stuff. We just put on solar panels on half of our big roofs. That was what all you people buying seeds has given us over these last 2 years of COVID, is a little more sustainable energy. And we do these things in fits and spurts as best we can. And we share, you know, I share like by writing books about gardening that we can influence other people who don't choose to be as radical about the whole trip as we are. And coming to the co-op, I didn't think anybody was going to be here. I thought everybody was going to be on Zoom. I was like, it's okay, but you came. This is great. Yes.
20 people on Zoom.
Yeah.
You put out a newsletter about your community? How will you work?
Well, we have a website, and maybe we'll have a newsletter. We have an Instagram account. They're Acorn. What is it? Acorn Community. Yep. Yeah.
One last question from Zoom. First is saying, we're going to be having a seed swap at the co-op soon. Do you have any tips to have a great seed swap?
Good stuff. Chris says there's going to be a seed swap at the co-op soon. Do I have any tips for how to make a good seed swap? Well, I think having people who are already seed savers come and share their knowledge makes for a really good seed swap. Good signage, like about how to do things. You know, we have a one-page how to save seeds. If I'd known they were going to have that, I would have brought some copies to share with people. But I could send the file to Chris if they emailed me at ira@southernexposure.com.
That would be great.
Yeah, good signs, friendly, knowledgeable people sharing their knowledge, snacks.
Chris says, we love that. Thank you, Arlo.
Chris is our general manager.
Ah, indeed. Well, that's why you have good leadership for such a lovely new co-op. I came and I said, well, we're gonna have to figure out a way to get more food from the co-op into our house. Thanks for having me. And then we're gonna go and get some food from the co-op and take it to our house.
Great, thank you.
Get it together.
Wonderful.